It was meant to be routine. A Dreamliner lifting off from Ahmedabad's Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport, passengers bound for London, a journey repeated hundreds of times without incident. But just 30 seconds after takeoff, the unthinkable happened. The Boeing 787 carrying 242 souls lost its lift, tilted violently, and slammed into the BJ Medical College hostel in a fireball so massive it could be seen across the city. Out of 242 on board, only one man survived. At first, the headlines blamed tragedy on bad luck, maybe a technical glitch or a pilot's mistake. But as investigators began pulling black box data, analyzing maintenance logs, and piecing together fragments of wreckage, they discovered something far more disturbing. What happened on Flight AI171 was not just a crash, it was a chain of failures, warnings ignored, and systems that may not have worked the way they were supposed to. And the deeper scientists dug, the more shocking the truth became. Witnesses on the ground watched in disbelief as the aircraft seemed to struggle the moment it left the runway. Normally, a Dreamliner climbs smoothly, its wings flexing upward with the graceful arc of lift. But Flight 171 never rose beyond 625 feet, just 400 feet above the airport's elevation. The landing gear remained extended, dragging against the air. The wings looked stiff, failing to move as they should. Then came the tilt, the stall, and the final nosedive that ended in an explosion of fire and twisted steel. Students inside the hostel's dining hall never had a chance to escape. In less than a minute, the plane that had flown over 41,000 safe hours suddenly became the deadliest crash in a decade. The official explanation pointed to human error, but scientists looking at the details began to question whether such a catastrophic failure could really unfold from a single mistake. Investigators turned quickly to the aircraft's flap system, the movable panels on the wings that give a plane lift during takeoff. Early analysis suggested that the co-pilot may have retracted the flaps too early, confusing the lever with the landing gear control. If true, that decision would have robbed the aircraft of critical lift and caused it to stall almost instantly. But here is where the story takes a darker turn. The Boeing 787 is designed with redundant safeguards to prevent exactly that kind of error. The aircraft should have triggered alarms, flaps, flaps, echoing through the cockpit, warning the crew before disaster struck. And yet, no such alarms were recorded on the voice recorder. Was the system silent, or were the warnings ignored? Maintenance logs deepened the mystery. Just weeks before the crash, technicians had repaired a flap actuator on the left wing, but follow-up quality checks were delayed due to part shortages. A one-week delay that might not have mattered, unless it became the fatal crack in the system that day. As data poured in, investigators noticed something chilling. This wasn't just about flaps. Multiple systems seemed to falter at once. The thrust recorded didn't match the captain's calls for power. The transponder cut out at just 625 feet, moments before the descent began. Hydraulic fluid checks had been skipped in recent audits. Even the electronic engine controls came under suspicion. Scientists began asking, could this really all be coincidence? In modern aviation, disasters are rarely the result of a single failure. They are cascades, one weakness triggering another until the entire system collapses. Flight 171 fit that pattern, but with alarming speed. 45 seconds from liftoff to impact. 45 seconds in which pilots trained for decades had no chance to recover. And when so many safeguards vanish at once, the question shifts from how did this happen to why wasn't it prevented? The aftermath of Flight 171 rippled far beyond the wreckage site. India's Aviation Authority ordered immediate inspections of every Dreamliner in the fleet. Airlines grounded flights for emergency checks of flaps, engines, and hydraulic systems. Boeing's stock price dropped almost 9% in days, investors fearing another global crisis like the 737 MAX. Passengers canceled tickets, confidence in the Dreamliner shaken worldwide. Lawsuits surged across Mumbai, London, and Lisbon, each demanding accountability for the 274 lives lost. And for the first time, regulators began to reopen old questions about the 787's design, the same aircraft once hailed as the future of aviation. Scientists warned that if a sensor glitch or software oversight played a role, then the problem was not limited to one aircraft in India. It could be global. Flight 171 was no longer just an accident. It was a warning that the systems meant to protect us may not be as unbreakable as we believe. Amidst the charred wreckage and smoke, one detail stood out like a miracle. Out of 242 people on board, only a single passenger walked away alive. Seated in 11A, near an emergency exit, he described crawling out through a gap torn open by the collapse of the fuselage. His seat was broken, the door jammed, yet somehow he made it through while everyone around him perished, including his own brother. He told reporters, "I didn't jump. I just walked out." His survival defied logic. How does one man escape when every structural safeguard failed, when fire consumed nearly everything in seconds? Scientists studying survivability in crashes called it statistical impossibility. To the public, it seemed like fate. But to investigators, his testimony raised further questions. If he made it out without the usual signs of explosive decompression or complete disintegration, what exactly happened inside the Dreamliner during those fatal seconds? The next day, search teams found both black boxes not buried in the wreckage, but lying intact on the rooftop of the hostel that had taken the brunt of the crash. It was as if they had been thrown clear, a rare occurrence considering their design to withstand catastrophic forces. Inside, however, the recordings only deepened the mystery. The captain's voice was steady until the very end, calling for thrust, while the co-pilot handled controls. The data showed flap retraction far earlier than procedure allows, but also revealed a gap. The stall alarms never triggered. No stall, no flaps, silence. Either the systems failed to warn, or the recordings were incomplete. Boeing insisted such redundancy failures are nearly impossible. Yet here was evidence, etched into the black boxes, that safeguards designed to prevent disaster had been absent in the final moments of Flight 171. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was meant to symbolize the future of aviation. Carbon fiber wings, whisper-quiet engines, unmatched fuel efficiency. But its history has been anything but smooth. In 2013, battery fires forced fleets to be grounded. In 2022, manufacturing flaws halted deliveries for nearly 2 years. In 2024, a whistleblower warned of shortcuts in assembly that could compromise fuselage joints. Those warnings, dismissed at the time, have resurfaced in light of Flight 171. Scientists and engineers are now asking, were the seeds of this crash planted long before takeoff? Did supply chain delays and skipped checks create a culture where safety margins shrank? If so, then Flight 171 is not an isolated tragedy, but the most violent symptom of systemic cracks in the aircraft's design and oversight. The Dreamliner's promise of safety is now shadowed by a past that refuses to stay buried. As attention turned from hardware to software, investigators began probing the possibility of an unseen culprit, the electronic brain of the Dreamliner itself. The 787 relies on fly-by-wire technology, where pilot commands are filtered through computers that decide whether to execute them. This makes flying safer in theory, but in a crisis, it can mean that human hands no longer have the final word. Experts pointed to the Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX disaster, where software misinterpretation led to fatal dives. Could something similar lurk in the 787's architecture? Did the flight control computers misread flap or thrust inputs, or even override pilot commands in those crucial seconds? If so, then Flight 171 wasn't simply lost to a mistake or mechanical glitch. It was lost to a ghost in the code, a hidden flaw buried deep within the algorithms trusted to keep us safe. And if that is true, the crash may only be the beginning of revelations about the machines we've come to depend on. Flight AI171 was supposed to be ordinary, a routine journey across continents. Instead, it became one of the deadliest crashes in a decade and a case that shook aviation to its core. In just 45 seconds, a Boeing Dreamliner that had flown safely for more than 700 journeys fell from the sky, claiming 274 lives and leaving only a single survivor. But what shocked the world was not only the scale of the tragedy, but the questions that followed. Flaps retracted when they shouldn't have been. Warnings that never sounded. Engines that did not respond to pilot commands. Black boxes thrown onto a rooftop, one silent, the other incomplete. a survivor who walked away when no one else could. These are not the marks of a simple error. They are the signs of a deeper fracture between man, machine, and the trust we place in the systems built to carry us safely through the skies. For scientists, the crash has become a symbol of modern aviation's paradox. We fly on aircraft more advanced than ever before, powered by algorithms and engineering beyond imagination. Yet in that complexity lies fragility. One misread sensor, one skipped inspection, one silent alarm, and all the layers of safety vanish in an instant. Flight 171 is no longer just a story about what went wrong on a single Dreamliner. It is about the world waking up to the reality that the future of flight may carry risks we still don't fully understand. If this was pilot error, then our safeguards failed. If this was a mechanical flaw, then our systems missed it. And if this was software or automation overriding human control, then we are standing at the edge of a much larger reckoning. Because if the machines we trust at 30,000 feet can betray us, what else are we blind to in the age of technology? The world has been shocked, but shock is only the beginning. Answers are still locked inside the black boxes, inside the lines of code, inside the choices made long before takeoff. And until those answers come, the question will haunt every passenger, every pilot, every flight. Are we truly in control, or have we already surrendered it? So if this story left you questioning the skies above, don't look away. Subscribe to this channel. We bring you the truths others prefer to bury. Turn on notifications because the next discovery could change everything you thought you knew about flying. Share this with someone who still believes the air is the safest place to be. And tell me in the comments, was Flight 171 a human mistake? Or the moment technology confirmed it could no longer be trusted?